Welcome back to Three Scoops Podcast. I'm Kel.
I'm Ron.
And I'm Rob.
I thought it'd be cool to talk a little bit about ourselves, about the area that we're from. For a lot of people that don't know, Three Scoops Podcast is out of Crescent City, California. We're in the heart of the Redwoods. We're right on the coast, Northern California. This area is such a cool area. I was born and raised here, lucky enough to call this place home. There's so many things to do here in the summertime, and I think for a lot of people that aren't familiar with this area might kind of drive through and go, oh, Crescent City, that's a small town. There's no nightclubs. There's no shopping malls. What's a person to do? Well, there are so many things to do, especially the weather's shaping up. We're getting into the heart of summer here in Crescent City. What are some of the things that you guys like to do?
There's so many things to do that are within close proximity, too. Like, if you live down in Central Valley, I mean, yeah, you can go up into the Sierras. You can drive an hour and maybe see some trees. Here, you're like 5 minutes away. You're mountain biking, you're surfing, you're bodyboarding, you're kayaking, you're river rafting, you're fishing, you're any outdoor activity you want to do.
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
Something that I did when I first came up here was I started to go to the beach. I would take my dog out, go run out on the beach, just explore the beach. You know, there's a lot of those cool rocky formations that you can go climb up on. And so that was really enjoyable for me, and also being able to catch the sunset out on the beach.
Oh yeah, that's definitely something that's underrated. Just having that big water feature here, just being right on the Pacific Ocean, I think is something a lot of us, especially locals, take for granted.
A lot of people take it for granted. I've noticed too. So there's people who live here and probably haven't been to the beach in 2 or 3 months, even just to drive by and look at it.
Oh, exactly. So definitely.
But a lot of people I've noticed also do take the time to appreciate it as well.
Yes.
I don't know if you ever just go drive out to the beach just to catch the sunset.
Mm-hmm.
You find a lot of people doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
They'll pull right up, wait, and watch the sunset, even just chilling in their car or whatever.
Yeah.
And they'll wait till the sunset is over, and then they'll get up and leave.
Take it home. Yeah. Well, I think even on a day when it's not a nice day, I think the beach is a good place to start talking about some different things to do around here. Even when it's a storm. It's a really stormy day and the weather's terrible. It's pouring down rain sideways and the ocean's just churning, with these big swells. I like to drive down to the jetty over down next to the pier in Crescent City and park right there along the jetty and watch the waves break over the jetty. I think there's that old quote, the ocean is the Pacific Ocean is the washing machine in my mind.
Yeah.
Just something to sit down and look at. And I don't think, or sometimes I'll write music or I'll do something while I'm down there, but a lot of times I just sit and I just stare out, and it's just so calming.
Calming, the rhythmic churning. Sometimes just walking on the beach too, just the sounds. And what I like about it is it's never the same. Every time you come back, it's different. There's something different about it. The sand's in a different spot, driftwood's in a different spot, the tide's in a different spot. The swells are big, the swells are calm. It's like it's always different. Yeah.
Well, like Ron was saying too, when I moved to Florida and I was on the Gulf Coast, it's beautiful, and you see this postcard picturesque scene where it's all these white sand beaches, and it's nice and calm and flat, and there's a Corona or whatever, and your feet in the sand. That's fine, but like he was saying about the rock features, our coastline has so much personality, and I don't think people appreciate that or take notice of that with the different rock formations and the visible erosion and the things like that, where you can see where the coastline has receded from farther points out into the ocean. It's actually pretty cool if you just sit and kind of meditate on the whole thing.
It is. And so I also really appreciate the redwood trees that we have out here.
Oh yeah.
Being able to go do some mountain biking out in those areas.
Sorry. Yes.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was running through a narrative in my mind, obviously. No, the redwoods for sure. I mean, we've talked about everything before that, and then the redwoods itself is enough reason to live here. Mm-hmm. Just going for a walk in like a prehistoric forest.
Well, if you go down to the beach too, and you're at the beach, a lot of times when I'll paddle out, because surfing is one of my favorite things to do. As I've gotten older, I've gotten more into paddle boarding than surfing, just because it's a little bit easier on me. I can be a little bit lazier with it. But when I'm out there and I'm on Crescent Beach and I'm standing or down there on South Beach, and I'm standing there on my paddleboard and I'm looking back at the coast from that angle that we don't get to see a lot of the times. Man, you watch these redwood trees drifting right down to the shore. You see the pebbles along the beach, and the sun hits it sometimes, and you see these. You're walking along the beach, and you see these little agates light up, and the sun's penetrating them and refracting the light back out to you. And you're sitting there looking at it, and there's a little bit of fog, a little bit of sun. These trees, these giant, 300 plus foot tall redwood trees coming right down to meet the coast. I mean, like you said, what a beautiful, prehistoric type environment that's so calls back to that inner part of you, you know.
Yeah, and I've had similar experiences in my kayak where I'm about a quarter mile off the coast on that South Beach where the mountains start coming up, and I've had days where the sun's going down behind me and the rain's coming in, and looking back towards that at the beach and getting the full like half rainbow.
Yeah,
that you're looking straight through, and it's
I
just
love
like
full half rainbows.
yeah, you know what I mean.
Full on double rainbow, bro.
Oh yeah, man.
We're so lucky.
Well, you know, a lot of times we also get some really beautiful cloud formations as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Especially with sometimes when you have the sun rising through and you get like some broken up cloud formations, you can get some really interesting light coming through the clouds. I've seen sometimes where you know, out in the day, everything just looks yellow, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, with that contrast where part of it will be gray,
right,
and then the other part's yellow, where like that stairway from heaven effect coming down, hitting
right.
it. Yeah, you get some pretty cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that prismed out light.
And I also like you get those not to sound sexual, the shafts of light when you're walking through the redwoods, where there's a small break in the canopy, and they're just spilling down onto the ferns.
Right.
Well, and the beautiful part about it too is there's so much to do in the redwoods. Like Ron touched on the mountain biking and stuff like that. We have so many cool mountain biking trails around here if people want to go through. Obviously, hiking. I mean, I could sit here and pull off my shoes and use all your guys' toes and all our hands and toes, and I couldn't name every hiking trail around here that you could go out and explore on. But when you're out there too, it's not just that. A lot of people, myself included, locally like to forage. You know, Mandy and I, my wife, we go out and we hunt mushrooms.
Yeah.
And we gather.
Very popular around here.
Yeah, and we do berries, you know, or we'll do the little the name's escaping me right now, but the little fern coils, you can take those and you can cook those up and consume those as well. People, you know, get barks and things for medicinal home remedies for everything from poison oak to athlete's foot to, you know, just I mean, there's such a plethora of local resources that you can go out and take advantage of for free out here without a permit or anything like that necessarily for just personal use.
And then there's the river. The Smith River is one of the cleanest rivers in the world.
Actually, you know what? It's a very clean river, but I thought that for a long time. I used to tell people all the time. I think the old
I meant as far as sediment. I don't know anything about pollutants and stuff, but it's just very clear. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot clearer, but I've been a lot of different places and seen a lot of rivers in the U.S., and I don't know any that are clear that I've personally seen.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that was one of the old myths that people used to say all the time. Oh, the Smith River is one of the cleanest rivers. I don't know how clean it is on a national ranking, but it's one of the top 3 or 4 clearest for clarity, like how far you can see underwater.
Yes, the sediment, basically, whatever dissolved solids are within the water.
Yeah. I mean, when I go out and I go up to, you know, Second Bridge, which is a local area up on the South Fork of the Smith, I'll go up there and I'll put on my scuba diving stuff and I'll swim up into, there's a big cavern or a big canyon up there.
Yeah.
And I'll swim into that and I could see 15, 20 feet, you know.
Probably even more. So in some spots, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot. Mm-hmm. If you've ever been to another river, like I'm sure people that grew up on like the American River in the Sacramento area or some of the canals down south, we go swim in the canal. I know my wife grew up in Blythe, and that was kind of their thing is they would swim in the canals. But I mean, man, those not only dirty but not clear either. We see so many fish and crayfish and different frogs and salamanders and newts. You know, between the Chet Cobra and the Smith River. I mean, we're really, really fortunate to have that available to us.
We've got those those reddish crayfish we have really prominent in the lower Smith and on my kayak, sometimes down by Dr. Fine Bridge, a little south of there before you get to Rowdy Creek. When you're floating, you just look over. It's just amazing how you're flowing in a small current and you're looking down and you're seeing these crayfish that are about 3 inches long just walking over rocks. It's just perfectly clear.
Yeah, it's amazing. The Crystal River down in Florida, actually next to my father's house, where he lives down in Weeki Wachee, Florida. That's also a very clear river. They have the manatees and stuff like that down there. Yeah. I've always thought how interesting it would be to see, and this is my weird mind working, but to take like a freshwater species of dolphin or something. Like we have the otters up here, which is the closest parallel to having a larger animal or type of mammal or something in the water with you when you're up here. But how cool would it be to introduce like a species of manatee or something into the river? I think the river gets too
cold probably, but
too cold, but also too the current flows too much. I've seen full redwood trees in the wintertime when the river pops up 30 feet floating down the river. It's like, oh, there goes a 240 foot tall redwood.
Yeah,
just down this giant 200-yard wide
so
river.
What you want to do is you want to import some Amazon river dolphins.
Yeah.
Okay.
And some manatees.
I'm on board.
And maybe some bigger, more vicious otters to
definitely
take out the local otters. Something more, something hardier.
Like an Africanized otter.
Yeah, like an African otter that I could use to train to hunt salmon in salmon season.
And then give them to you like this?
Yeah. Here you go, master. Cut it up because I don't really like the roe. But we do have seals and stuff that come up in the mouth of the Klamath, the mouth of the Smith.
Yeah, I've been 5 miles up the Smith fishing and seen seals. So, yeah, they come up.
Oh,
definitely.
Yeah. Definitely.
Chase those salmon.
What kind of fishing do we have available up here?
Well, we got some trout runs. It's bigger in the Chetco than it is in the Smith, which is Chetco's the river in Brookings.
Just over the border, just so everyone knows, Crescent City is about 20 miles from the Oregon border, and just on the other side of the town, nestled in another little harbor, is the cities of Brookings and Harbor, respectively, very close to each other.
Yeah.
Also a beautiful little town that's connected. The Chetco River runs right through the center of the two towns, basically.
Yeah, and so we've got salmon runs in both rivers. We've got steelhead runs in both rivers, and then just trout, and there's even some ocean-going cutthroat runs that we have. So that's just the fishing in the rivers. There's tons of fishing in the ocean.
Right.
I think, too, if I'm not mistaken, the Smith River here in Northern California is one of, if not the only, undammed river left in the state of California, which actually
I think it might be the only undammed major, like what they would call major river system.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there probably are some smaller ones, but I'm pretty sure you might be right, though, on that.
Yeah. I think that's, just for the fact that this area has fought off nickel mining at the heads of the Smith. It's fought off different types of,
They're even trying to fight off right now currently on the North Fork. I don't know if it's a nickel or a copper mine company that owns some stuff, and they're trying to fight that now too because of the effluent that would be put into the river on the North Fork up by Major Moore's.
Yeah, there's so much sediment and stuff that gets deposited. I mean, it would just absolutely ruin the river.
It would, yeah.
That's nuts. I think everyone here that lives up here, even regardless of left wing, right wing, conservative, liberal, I think everyone up here appreciates the beauty and the nature. And I think that's something that kind of that consolidates us all together as one local population, is that we all appreciate what we have as far as, even if you're conservative, generally speaking, a lot of the conservatives that live up here, they like to hunt, they like to fish, they like to go out camping, they like to go out hiking. But the same thing, a lot of more liberal people, they like to go out and they do the foraging, and they also like to do the camping and the hiking and the snowshoeing and all the beautiful things that we have around here. So hopefully going forward, we can all preserve this.
From my experience too, talking to a lot of the hunters and fishers and stuff up here, that nobody wants to see anything depleted, and people get mad, just like I would get mad when you see the clear cut, because you're like, instead of dotting the hillside and leaving some trees for the soil erosion and stuff, when you see that clear cut, you're like, it's just like, oh man, you just raped that hillside. Like, it's gone.
Oh.
Yeah, and you just think what's going to happen after that. And
Oregon has a lot of things, because I live just north of the border, that I don't like. But at the same time, in the same breath, I do like where with the logging, they've implemented this tactic where I think it's required by law that for every tree that you harvest, you have to plant one in replacement. And I think that's cool, because you see these hillsides, and as opposed to in California where I see a 400-yard by 300-yard swatch of hillside just totally raped, like you said, it takes 15 years for it to come back somewhat. With these little starter trees and these little saplings that they put down in there, basically within 5 years you have a 10-foot tall trees covering the side of the mountain again, which is good, one, for erosion, two, even small woodland creatures can
the thing that a lot of people don't realize too is that the cutting down of the forest isn't necessarily bad, in the fact that before humans, forest fires from lightning strikes would burn huge swaths of the forest, and that was habitat for a lot of animals, especially like deer and other things that eat grasses and stuff. They would eat things from those basically clear cut areas. But the difference between a clear cut burn and a clear cut is that their root systems are destroyed when you just cut everything down and just swat that hillside, versus when there's burnout section, the soil doesn't go as much and the ash helps regrow. So when they do the cutting now, if they leave trees like every 30 yards or so, a few trees, it helps the soil retain itself too, rather than just a straight clear cut. The difference is it's a little harder to log it that way because you're moving around the different trees. But I honestly think it's a good compromise, and most of the forestry companies are on board with it as long as they're still allowed to harvest their land.
Oh yeah, because they're looking long term too. If you're one of the CEOs of these timber companies, you don't want to deplete your resource either. You know what I mean? You want to be in business ideally for the next, if you're a 30 or 40-year-old CEO for the next 40 years.
Yeah.
So they know that they're dealing with a resource that's replenishable if they take the correct measures. And I think in a long-term scheme for the company, it makes sense to invest in some of these things.
So let's talk about some of the other things that are available to do here in town. Not necessarily just involved in nature, but what other things do we have available?
There's nothing. There's nothing here. It's a wasteland.
All nature.
No, I mean there's a lot of fun things. I think a cool thing about this community is the local sporting events. I think that we have a really strong local sports community, whether it's the youth leagues for football, for baseball, the recreational leagues for basketball, whether it's high school sports. This town's really behind
for sure.
their high school sports teams, or even like men's rec league basketball, co-ed softball. Those are things that are huge in this community. I think it's fun to go out and watch and support some of these local athletes going out there and having a good time, or even jumping in yourself. You don't have to be Sammy Sosa. I'm sorry, my baseball references are dated.
That's fine.
To go out there and have a good time, have some beers, play some co-ed softball, smack some balls, catch some grounders, make some plays. I think it's a good time going out to the high school football games. I mean, and I'm biased because I played local high school football when they would put me in, which wasn't often, sadly. But you go out and you watch these events. These kids are putting it on the line. The parents are out there supporting. The fans get really into it. Some of the dance performances and stuff that the cheerleaders and the young girls put on in this community. I mean, we have a strong community base around athletics and sporting events, and I think that's a really cool thing to enjoy.
Yeah.
Have you guys partake in any of that? You guys ever go out and watch any of the high school sporting events?
Not so much.
Just a little bit.
It's a lot less creepy now that I'm married to go with my wife than it was to go. I'm just like, hey, I went to high school here about 10 years ago. Didn't bring my Letterman's jacket. I forgot it. But, me and my wife go out and we watch.
Enjoy the cheerleader performances.
No, didn't say that.
Okay.
But when, I had younger brothers and sisters that played, sports too, and were on the cheer team and did football. And it was always fun going and watching them and kind of living vicariously through them and watching them have some of the same experiences that I had and established common ground to talk to them about. But, even now with my wife, if we go out and we watch like a volleyball game or a basketball game or a baseball game, it's still something that's fun. And, how much money do people pay to go out and see a professional sporting event?
Yeah. When
some of these plays that these young kids, they're putting it all out there, man.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
I've seen a kid with a cast, catch a one-arm touchdown from a 30-yard throw. I mean, some of these kids are really impressive athletes. We've had some good athletes come out of this community, and it's always fun to go try to support them.
I've watched my kid play t-ball and just stand there and play with the dirt.
Yeah, make a daisy bracelet.
That's what you do with t-ball, right?
Yeah, you just squat down and play in the dirt.
Yeah, that's lay in the grass and pick flowers.
Back in my day, we didn't have t-ball.
What'd you have?
Just ball.
Oh.
Ball.
No tee.
We didn't have a baseball.
Tees were sophisticated.
Bats. We just had dirt.
Dodgeball.
Dirt. Just a little dirt on dirt. That being said, too, I think some of the other fun things is the art scene in this community is actually growing, especially over the last 5 years. There's a lot more bands.
There's quite a few art galleries too. I mean, for that kind of art too.
Definitely, yeah, for physical art.
Yeah.
There's a lot of art galleries, a lot of painters, a lot of if you go down to Martial Arts, fun play on words, down off South Beach here in Crescent City, they have some wood sculptures in there that are amazing. They have some really cool stuff. If I was a more affluent gentleman, I would purchase some of their works and hang them in my house. Spencer Reynolds up in Brookings.
Oh, yeah.
He's a painter. Have you seen his stuff?
Yeah.
Semi-aquatic art gallery in Brookings. He has some crazy stuff. It reminds me of my younger partying days.
Whoa. A different kind of mushroom hunting.
Buddy, I didn't say that. That's allegedly. It was to walk into that gallery, though, and realize that we have people in our community locally that are so talented and so professional. I mean, it's a really cool thing. It kind of makes you a little bit prideful of your community, whereas sometimes I think people get so obsessed with the culture of like homelessness here and stuff like that, and some of the bigger problems that we have in infrastructure all over California. To address these problems, that to kind of take a step back, take a big breath, realize all the good things. I think it's a good exercise to try to focus on the good things and appreciate them and voice that, because we do have a lot of cool stuff in this community. I think people take for granted a lot of the time.
So what else have you seen, Rob, that you like to do within town that's not necessarily nature related?
Well, what I would like to do more of is walk. I like taking walks around the town and stuff, but then partly I don't. It's like a dichotomy, because the town is kind of run down, and I mean, hopefully it's going to be revitalizing soon, but like a lot of rundown buildings and stuff, and I'm sure a lot of the tourists, when they come through, they see that. But I mean, there are some good restaurants, and the town is set up well. It's got the beachfront park that runs the length. It's got like a bike path that goes around the harbor. It's a nice place for a walk.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that some of the buildings are run down and stuff, but I think there's a lot of historical value in that too, because some of these buildings here were built in the 20s, built in the 30s, and you see them, and some of them are in disrepair, but some of them aren't. And I think that the town overall has gotten better in the last 5 years as far as fixing up some of these community public access areas like the park, or like some of these memorials. We have the lighthouse, Battery Point Lighthouse. That's not a thing that's necessarily based in nature, but if you've ever gone out there, the tour is really cool.
It is.
They take you through and they tell you about the former lighthouse keepers and things like that. Have you
been out to the lighthouse, Ron?
No, I haven't.
It's worth going.
Yeah. Take your boys, take your wife, go out there. It's a good time. The Crescent City Museum even has some really interesting stuff.
It's the old jailhouse.
Yeah, it's the old jailhouse. They retrofitted it to a museum.
They've got the lens, the old Fresnel lens from the Point St. George Lighthouse in there that you can look at.
I have taken my kid to Ocean World.
Oh yeah.
To go.
Formerly under SeaWorld.
Right.
I think there's some legal obligations with just putting under in front of SeaWorld.
But he's been out there to pet the little baby. Is it baby sharks that they have in the?
They have the shark petting. They have starfish licking. Something like that. Is that CNNMA? They lick, you lick something there.
You can't lick them.
Yeah, you can.
You're not supposed to.
No, maybe they've changed it. But when I went, I did a field trip with my son. They were encouraging it. They were like, it makes your tongue tingle, and everyone. I was like, this is the strangest thing I've ever seen.
Let's all lick this one sea anemone.
Yes. No, they did. I'm serious.
It's been a while since I've been out there. Actually, my younger sister works out there, and she actually told me today she just got approved. She's doing the training now for the SEALs, but they have an outstanding seal and sea lion show.
Yes, they do.
Where they perform tricks, they pop balls through hoops, they do some different behaviors that they've taught them. The aquarium portion is very cool. It's under, it's down in the basement layer of this building. They actually, for a local small town, it's a very cool aquarium.
Yes, I agree. I've been to some of the other ones. Like, they have something that's very similar in Newport, Oregon, and I would argue ours is like twice as good.
Yeah.
And Newport's arguably a bigger tourist town than this.
I think a lot of people don't realize that not only do they have the sea lion exhibit, I think a lot of people driving through, I'm not sure if they're aware that there's an aquarium there. I know the sign says it, but I've talked to a lot of people locally that have lived here for 15 years and have never been or never bothered to go for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things that, I'm not going to go every weekend and watch it.
No.
But to go once or twice, when family comes into town.
Exactly. It's one of those things when family comes into town. It's like Trees of Mystery just a little bit to the south of Crescent City. It's one of those things where it's like, I know it's there, and to me, I'll just go take a walk in the Redwoods for free. But when family come to town, we'll go to Trees of Mystery. You'll take the gondola up to the top of the mountain. It's just something you do. Yeah.
It's one
Get
area.
to see a lot at once.
Well, that's another thing that's really cool. Trees of Mystery. You ever been up there, Ron?
I have many, many years ago.
Did you take the tour, or did you just go into the museum? Their museum is actually an interesting museum full of Native American artifacts.
Yeah,
also.
exactly.
I don't remember. And then you know what? When I've had family come up to visit, I'll be working, and then they all go to Trees of Mystery without me.
Yeah, that's rough too.
Yeah.
That's a really cool local tourist thing that we have is the Trees of Mystery. This town used to be a big area for roadside attractions, whether it was burl shops or whether it was, kind of like along the Route 66, world's biggest ball of yarn. Hey, look at this giant, not Babe Ruth, geez, Babe the Blue Ox and Paul Bunyan statues out front. I think it's a really cool little local piece of Americana that we don't take advantage of fully all the time, because they do have some interesting old wood carvings out there from the 60s and the 70s that old chainsaw artists used to do out of redwood stumps. They have the gondola ride up there that's been built within the last 20 years.
Yeah.
That takes you up to the top of this vista, and you can look over and really just realize and have a really cool view that you can't really get anywhere else of the expanse of all the redwood trees.
Yeah, you can look over towards the ocean, and you can look back up the Klamath River Valley and see a lot of...
I mean, that's a
lot
crazy
of territory.
thing. We see more trees. I mean, I can look out the window right now here at Starry Sky Studio where we do the podcast, and I can see more trees along the top of the hill crest than most people probably see in a year, or even some people in their entire lives.
Yeah, especially if you live in a place like Southern California.
Or Afghanistan.
Or Southern California.
I'm trying to think of the least tree.
The least treed area?
Tree-y
That'd
place.
probably be the desert. Sahara
like
Desert.
Afghanistan.
Sahara Desert. There's actually trees in Afghanistan.
No, there's not.
There are trees in Afghanistan.
Listen, you terrorist.
Easy.
What do you think I hid in?
A lumber load. That's how I got here. Oh, you just want to steal our trees. That's why you hate us.
I don't hate you, buddy.
No, not me specifically.
Oh, okay.
You hate our freedom. And
What?
No, also too, I was gonna say there's a local emerging music scene here too in Crescent City, and I think that's an interesting thing. I think there's a lot more venues that are and bars that are opening. There's more breweries that are opening between Crescent City and Brookings.
It's a big trend that's coming on right now. I mean, not just here, but everywhere with the micro brews and the live music. It's a good trend that it used to be. Like in the 50s and the 40s, I mean, live music is what you expected when you went anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Whether
100%.
you were dancing and you had like a small orchestra or like a jazz band or whatever, and it's coming back, which is good. It's a different atmosphere.
I think so
that
too.
People are used to.
Well, and it fosters a sense of community too, because you can
definitely.
go out and you can see these people that you might know from work. You know, I might go down and I'll see, you know, oh, hey, check out Ron's band. Ron's band's playing this weekend, and you know Ron is this suit and tie professional accountant or whatever, you know, he happens to do for a 9 to 5.
Different side.
Yeah, you get to see a different side of them. You get to see who they are as a person. You get to listen to some of their music and kind of get a deeper delve into who they are. But all these breweries are starting to do more and more of that. Local radios are starting to play, especially in the Eureka area and up in Ashland and Medford, starting to play more local artists, and it's kind of getting back to that actually fostering a real music scene in the Pacific Northwest, where it's pretty refreshing to see, and it definitely makes it more interesting to go out and kind of enjoy your community and have some of these events, these barbecue cook-offs, these chili contests, these events in the harbor in Brookings, the Tall Ships Festival, where they bring in these pirate ships once a year to Crescent City Harbor, and you get to go out and do a tour on them. Then they do some fireworks and have some local music and some
and like Crescent City's doing the first Friday, which a lot of small towns do, which is the first Friday of every month. They close down the downtown and have street vendors come out, and the shops are open later, and so people can kind of wander around and see a side of the town they might not normally see.
Well, I think that's important too for people visiting the area, looking to relocate to somewhere like this, instead of going to Eugene, instead of going to Bend, instead of going to these big, more metropolitan areas. They can see that this area has potential and possibility, and they can come in and invest. Oh, I want to open a local, a juicery or something like that, and they see that this town has a viable community that comes out and would support local business like that. And I think that's important. I think that's important for this town to survive.
Yeah, totally agree.
And thrive.
So, it's funny that you mentioned First Friday. You actually participate in that with your shop.
I do,
you?
yes, yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, one of my jobs is I own a toy store downtown. So we have like a small specialty educational, eco-friendly style toy store in the downtown.
Okay.
So.
And what's it called?
It's called Aiden's Toy Trove. I didn't know we were doing this.
Oh, yeah.
Here's a little plug. I haven't personally been to First Friday since they started doing it initially about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
How is it? Is it expanded? Has it grown more?
Yes, and if it's not raining, it's amazing how many people come out. And then when I get people like at work or someone I'm talking to come down, when they do come down, they're like, "Wow, I didn't realize there was this much down here."
Yeah.
That's usually the response I get, because there's a lot of stuff down there, but a lot of people around here, if they're not going to Walmart, the only reason they go downtown is to go to the bank or to go to the post office, and they're just flying by 3rd Street. They're not stopping. They're not seeing that there's businesses there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think it's cool too to see people out in the community participating like that. But also, when you go down into those areas, you see some of the downtown possibility. There's open shop venues and things down there too, right?
Oh,
Next
yeah,
to where
definitely.
you're
And
at.
there's local artists come down and they set up little things. And then people who do street food, for lack of a better term, but not necessarily all the time. They just come down for events, and you'll see people like, oh, I didn't know you did that.
Doing some catering and things
Yeah.
like that. You guys see, do they let alcohol down
Yes,
there?
yes.
Okay.
They close down a certain amount of blocks. I don't know the exact amount. When you go down to the little central hub, you buy a bracelet. I want to say it's $5 that they ID you, and if you have a pink bracelet, then you can buy alcohol from the different local breweries. You'll have like Seaquake. You'll have what's the other one? Right there by the
Porta Pints?
Porta Pints. We'll be
Okay.
down there a lot.
Nice.
And sometimes a few other random people will be wine. There'll be people selling wine and stuff. And it's a nice atmosphere. People just wander around and talk.
Is it like a beer garden type area, or is it
No,
larger,
the entire
more-
area.
Okay.
So it's like 4 or 5 block area. If you're in that area and you have a bracelet on, you can drink.
Okay. Awesome.
And they've got local, like, not police, but like security volunteers, people walking around, try to keep
public
it safe.
safety and
It's also what I like about it too. I mean, everyone has their different preferences, but I like the fact that it's smoke free. So it's tobacco free and it's marijuana free. So, you have your kids down there, you're not breathing other people's smoke and whatever. It's supposed to be a friendly atmosphere.
Yeah.
And so far it has been.
That's awesome. No, I think it's important for our community to have stuff like that going on. It's cool that you're a part of it too, directly being a local business owner.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that pretty much sums up a lot of the stuff to do in this area.
Okay.
I think that's kind of what we just wanted to touch on, right? Was
Yeah,
just
definitely.
Some local things going on this summer. Yeah.
Right. Well, I didn't have too much to contribute to all this, just because, I'm pretty busy myself at home with my kids, but we do try to get together as a family and go out and appreciate things like the beach.
Well, when you have 9 kids, that's a responsibility
3.
that you need to take on.
3.
I knew it was a multiple of 3. I knew it.
Okay.
Hopefully, though, as your kids get older, that is some community. Those are some community activities you can take them out. And
they'll be getting into the local sports, and of course, we'll be taking time to appreciate the nature, and I want to take my kids out eventually to do fishing and maybe a little bit of hunting. We'll see.
Okay.
But it's nice to know that some of this stuff is out there. I think First Friday is something that I would like to be able to participate in.
Take your kids down to
Right.
Aiden Toy Trove and spend some money.
Right.
Treasure
right
chest.
now it's a
What
little
is it?
hard just
Aiden's
because-
Toy Trove
Toy Trove. Okay.
Yeah. Right now it's a
Tongue
little
twister.
hard just because 2 of my kids are
in diapers. You can say it.
yeah, they're in diapers, so that is a little bit harder.
It's a hindrance.
Just being able to take everybody out, but
Hey, everyone want to go on a 5-mile hike? Because you're like, I'm a baby. Yeah. So probably not, Dad.
right.
Well, that's cool though. Like you said, I mean, that's a huge thing in this community too. Is hunting. Not just the fishing that we were talking about, but hunting too. Whether it's duck or deer, or they're going out for elk, you're pulling elk permits. I mean, that's a really cool part about this community. That's kind of self-sustained. If we got cut off from the rest of the world tomorrow, we have farm, we have agriculture, we have sustainable style of living here that we can all appreciate and partake in to different extents, whether that's foraging or whether that's hunting or fishing or raising your own cattle or growing your own garden. That's an availability to own property and have resource up here that I think is a really interesting and fun part about being a part of this community up here in this area.
Right.
Yeah, I totally agree.
All right. So you want to close this off?
I'll close us off. Thank you again for tuning in to 3 Scoops Podcast. I've been Kel.
I've been Ron.
And I've been Rob.
I'm glad we've all just been ourselves. That speaks a lot. If you are going to follow and check us out here on YouTube, make sure to click that subscribe button and hit the notification bell to stay up to date on all the latest content that we're going to be releasing. Generally, every Sunday, we're coming out with at least one new video. You can also follow us on social media at facebook.com. If you type in 3 Scoops Podcast, we're the only one on the entire planet. And at Instagram, you can follow us at 3.scoops.707.
Thanks, guys, for
y'all.
listening.
Thanks.
Listening.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for living.
Thanks for leavening the bread.
Levitating the bread. Bye.
Bye.
Later.